beginning, was there a particular reason that you decided to bootstrap rather than taking on external investment?
We only had one guy who said, look, I'll invest and give me a percentage of the company. And we were doing design work for the guy at the time, and he was a real dealer, and we thought, no, we don't want to do that. And a lot of it, I think, was also wanting to have control of this baby. And I think, we also had certain motivations. So I come from a family of creatives. My father's a photographer. Up until that point in the stock industry, the creatives were earning maybe, max 20%, often 10% of every sale, which I just personally thought was really, kind of obscene. So the intention was that we wanted to, we started at about 20%, and then every time we could afford it, we would increase it until we got to around, 78%. And sort of that was really unheard of in the industry at that time, and I think that was a big motivator for us not to take external funding, because that as soon as you take external funding, they're looking at a short runway oftentimes in order to get their return on investment. And if you're saying I'm playing a 10-year game here, they're probably going to go, yeah, please don't. Please just get some cash in the door. So I think a lot of the decisions that we made at that period set us up. A huge number of creatives and a huge number of those people are exclusive and loyal to us. And that just wouldn't have been possible if we were looking at short-term return on investments and not, we have a core value which is when the community succeeds, we succeed, and we actually use that to make decisions.
Kind of interested to know whether you think there are any circumstances in which it doesn't make sense to bootstrap, or whether you were ever worried that if I don't take on investment, someone's going to come along and they're going to leapfrog me and they're going to be the Envato of X.
Look, I have to say that the landscape of the internet was very, very different 11 years ago. Like, it really honestly was. So I think any advice that I give you in relation to my experience with Envato always needs to be taken with a bit of a grain of salt, because we were first to market in a whole bunch of different areas, and I think being first to market gives you an absolutely incredible advantage that you really can't understate. If you're going into a saturated market and you really think you've got an innovative product, then I'd say, yeah, I think investment can be a really, really smart thing to do. I know people who have decided not to go for VC investment and instead, gone and gotten sort of smaller amounts from technology founders who were maybe a bit more out of the game, or just, entrepreneurs generally, or, people, with just a lot of cash to burn who understand business, and said, look, here's where I think the opportunity lies, and gotten just a small amount from a whole bunch of different players who just sort of like, okay, that'll be interesting, let's look at that. Now that requires you to kind of get your foot in the door and have some connections, but we ended up investing in your grocer, and that's because Morgan literally came into an open office and was like, by the way, this is my business and it's a marketplace, and made a really compelling pitch, and we got to know him and we liked him, and then we ended up investing. Not a massive investment by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it's very possible to find a kind of a sweet spot between the full-on VC funding and bootstrapping it. You can maybe get some financial help along the way and mentorship at the same time. And I think that's the perfect scenario if you're going into a space which already has some established players.